Welcome to another episode of the Everything Antarctica podcast. I'm Matty Jordan, I'm here with Jonny Harrison, and today Johnny's going to tell us about what a day in his life looked like at Scott Base as the base electrician. So we've spoken last week about what a day in my life was like as a project manager working down at Scott Base, but Johnny's going to give us a bit of an overview on what it's like for one of the more hands-on roles that's involved in the critical life infrastructure. So what does that look like, Johnny? Day in your life?
For the electrician, that varies depending on summer and winter as well, like you sort of spoke to in your episode. Typically get up out of bed at about sort of 6:30 or something, or 6 o'clock. Go, unlike you, I have to have breakfast, so straight into the mess hall and go and make myself some granola with some yogurt or some milk, and sit there with my espresso coffee. So make myself a flat white and sit there and have my morning coffee and have my granola. And one of the things that is probably, for me anyway, the best way to start the day, when you're sort of sitting at the dining room table and you're looking out this little window which is framing the flagpole, and there's Antarctica, right? So every day I'd try and get up early and sit in the same spot if I could, creature of habit, and just really enjoy that moment. So, and then typically speaking, there'd be a lot of people that would start filtering in as I was having breakfast. So you start having those conversations, how was people's night's sleep, and what are people up to today? Start getting into that mode of okay, well, what are we actually getting prepared for? And then after breakfast, go and brush my teeth and do all those kind of things, and then down to the meeting room to go and have our toolbox talk, as you sort of discussed last week. So go and sit in a meeting room with all the other trades and engineering team, and it's where you sort of go through any hazards and make sure that we've got any conflicts or anything like that, that we iron out any of those before they become issues, and kind of also say where we're going to be working and what we're going to be working on. So go through that meeting, and then after that meeting there'll be, often if there's any little follow-up or sort of sidebar things that need to be communicated or discussed, we'll go through some of those. So it might end up being that, okay, today we're going to go and climb one of the wind turbines, so we now need to have a couple other people giving us a hand, or we need to sort out cover from a fire watch perspective. So you kind of go through and ask people to cover you for the day so that you can go off and do your day's work. And so there's those kind of coordination things that can happen straight after the meeting as well, once you've identified who else is going to be doing work in this space or whatever. So then it's down to the office, and so the electricians have a little office there with office/workshop. So a couple of computers there, so a computer for the summer electrician and a computer for the summer/winter electrician. And so go through the emails, just sort of see what's coming, and keep tabs of sort of what's going on. And depending on whether or not I've finished breakfast early or how it ended up, sometimes you do them the other way around. Do that before the morning meeting, and then it's usually get into the day. So if it's a day, say we're climbing a turbine, then it's making sure that we've got a vehicle booked in the booking system, ready to go. Any final little things. Say some scientist has come to you at breakfast and said, actually I need a hand with this, and I'm going out into the field today. Can you prioritise this? Yep, sweet, no worries. Nail that out, and then okay, sweet, off we go. So yeah,
cool. And I think some people might just think, electrician, you must be dealing with just domestic kind of changing light bulbs and things like that, but there's a whole lot more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah, particularly at Scott Base, right? So we're pretty fortunate in the sense that it's not just your standard sort of domestic electrician duties of, as you say, changing light bulbs and making sure power points are going, because we've got our own generating plant, and we've got our own generating network between a microgrid between McMurdo and Scott Base. We are quite heavily involved in making sure that those assets are running as they should as well. So up until recently we were making sure that we did all of the turbine servicing. As they're starting to age, they're needing a bit more work now, but when I was down there it was quite cool. So it was pretty awesome to climb all the way up the no elevators in these turbines. They're a bit too small for that, so climb up the turbine and do the monthly or quarterly servicing on them.
Yeah, must have been some pretty special views from the top of those turbines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got some pretty cool photos and videos from the top of what they call the nacelle, which is the top bit of the turbine, the egg shape on the top. So some pretty cool memories going up there. And but then it can be anything like cable inspection, so making sure that we're walking the cable routes to make sure that there's no rocks that have fallen on things, or things haven't moved. So it's inspections, all that kind of thing, right the way through to, as I sort of touched on before, science support. So scientists, as they're going out into the field, they might come to Scott Base and be like halfway there on finishing something, or they've had an issue, or something's happened in cargo, or any number of things can come up. And so, actually, can you give us a hand repairing this or that? And being part of the team, there's also a communications specialist, so somebody that's more of a telecommunications specialist, and their role is around more that kind of electronics and the satellite comms, and looking after our radios and a whole bunch of other important parts, our phone network and things. So we've got also quite a good electronics workshop down there as well, which is cool. So I know a little bit about that as well, so that's kind of quite handy when you want to go and make yourself batteries for winter for your camera for your time lapses. But so it's usually a collaboration between, is this electrical as far as the electrician skill set, or does this actually fall more into the electronics realm and need to go to the telecom tech to be fixed? So a lot of those kind of things. Testing and tagging, so testing of the equipment before it goes out into the field, making sure that it's fit for purpose. Just general standard routine maintenance of the station, so making sure that all the light bulbs and all those kind of things are working as they should. And it's also helping the other trades, so often we'll end up having support be requested by the power engineer to look after some of those, if the generators aren't quite working as they should, or if the water engineer needs a hand with, say this pump needs to be pulled out and replaced, or anything like that. So it can be it's everything from your domestic changing light bulbs right the way through to your commercial, that we've got it is a commercial building at the end of the day, right the way through to a little bit of industrial as well. And then our building management system, or BMS, which controls all the HVAC, the heating and ventilation and control. So it's a fairly varied role. We've got fuel systems, we've got hazardous substance areas, so we've got LPG storage. So it's it covers a wide gamut of electrical.
Yeah, and there's recurring tasks that come up weekly, monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, and things like that. So what would a typical, say like a recurring monthly task be?
A recurring monthly task is we'll go around the entire station and just check that all of the light bulbs are working as they should. There's a bunch of PowerPoints that we need to check on the monthly sort of regular. So and then there's also the things like the hitching rails. So we'll go out and establish those at the beginning of the season, and then that's one of our weekly tasks, is to actually go through and make sure that those are still working as intended, because obviously if the block heaters and the engines of the vehicles aren't working as they should, it's not a good time for any mechanical equipment being left at those temperatures potentially. Yeah,
and there's a system that we've got, an electronic system that divvies out these tasks, so you'll get a list of things at the start of the week to say, these are the things that you need to do in the next 5-6 days, or this is a new item that you need to add to your rounds for the day, or just bear in mind in 3 weeks time you've got this big task coming up, so don't allocate other tasks to overlap with that, because you're going to need a full week to do that sort of stuff. So it's quite a helpful little tool to have, isn't it?
CMMS, so computerized maintenance system essentially. So that, as you say, spits out all the different tasking, and it's good because you can take a view back or step back and look at, what am I going to be doing in the next month, the next couple of months? I've got that time there, so make sure that I've got all my other tasking finished off, so that I can really concentrate on that.
And the priorities shift throughout the day, week, month. I remember we had an issue with the coffee machine, and when the coffee machine stops working, that is priority number one to fix. People live and breathe coffee down in Antarctica, no matter where you are. And there was an electrical issue that needed fixing. The electrician had other plans. Those plans got
diverted.
They got postponed for a day, and the coffee machine got fixed. So by the time everyone rolled around for afternoon smoko or afternoon tea, just a little snack break, the coffee machine was back up and running, and everyone was happy. So
the same goes for the chefs if they've got issues with the ovens and things like that, right? It's pretty fundamental kit where you don't have a whole second one sitting there ready to go that you can just suddenly prep all of this food for 100 people in this other oven. It's like we just don't have the space for that. So it becomes pretty high priority when those things do break down. Another thing on the breakdown side of things, so often we'll end up in summer particularly, but in summer and winter, the electrician gets to be on the duty roster for essentially the call outs. So we have alarm panels in the electrician rooms, the water engineer's room, and the power engineer's room. And so this panel has a whole bunch of indicator lights, and that's fed off the building management system, the BMS. And so if there's an alarm in one of the panels, so it could be a pre-fire alarm comes up, or it could be that one of the units is tripped or something like that, as far as one of the generating units or something like that. If there's an alarm that comes up, the annunciator panel inside the room will go off, and then you'll wake up and you'll go, okay, sweet, you'll silence the alarm to start with so that the other people don't wake up as well. And then you walk your way down the base and go and look at the computer and see, okay, right, this is what's going on, and then you have some more further investigation to see what the fault is and whether or not it's is it an issue that we need to get more people up for. Yep, cool, do that. If it's actually this can probably wait till morning, it's no real major, cool, okay, yep, sweet. And then it gets brought up in that next morning meeting, or if you're interacting with one of the other tradespeople that needs to look after that particular item of kit, then you sort of mention it to them at breakfast.
Yeah. Cool. So you've pretty much spoken through most of the tasking that you'd be requested to do. Once work finishes for the day, what are you up to after that?
Yeah, so similar to you, like if time allows, if you finish up your tasking on time and you finished at 5 o'clock, then ideal, go out for a bit of a walk after work, stretch the legs and get some fresh air, and that's always pretty good, up Bob Hill or Crater Hill, or and then back to for dinner. Usually come back, have a shower, and then sit down for dinner and have dinner. I tried to have dinner right on around 6 o'clock, and then that way, if you hadn't gotten out for a walk, then after dinner, go out for a walk. In summer, I'd often try and make the most of the daylight and get out and about, whereas in winter, it's kind of when it's a bit darker, it's like a little bit more relaxed. You're coming from you're possibly not going for a walk after dinner, a walk before dinner, and so it's like, okay, you spend a bit of time in the bar and just watch the news and see what's going on and catch up with people, and then have some dinner, and then potentially, I will go for a walk. Okay, on away you go. So just depends on the season. And for me in winter, I quite enjoyed going to the gym either first thing in the morning, so I'd normally wake up even earlier, 5 o'clock or so, and hit the gym in the morning, or otherwise I'd go at lunchtime. So it just depends. Yeah,
that's interesting. So, lunchtime is probably not a very busy time of the day to go to the gym.
Particularly in winter. So, that worked out quite well for me. And other ones is, go out and take photos and set up cameras. So often after dinner, if I wasn't doing anything else, I'd very often I'd go out and set up a time-lapse camera for the evening and sort of get that set up and away it shoots overnight. And then first thing in the morning, the next morning after, even before breakfast, scurry off down the base and go and get the memory card in and maybe swap it over in winter. So keep them going if I can. But in summer, less of a concern.
Cool. Anything else?
I think for me as well, on the Sundays for the day off, so I'd try and get as much of that sort of life admin stuff out of the way on the Saturday after base tasks. So I'd get all my washing done and all the laundry things done before needing to spend my day off doing that. And so for me, I'd often get up early on the Sunday morning and I might go for a walk before before brunch, and then get back in, have a shower, and then head into brunch. And brunch was always good. And then sort of have the afternoon to kind of be editing photos or catching up with family and friends back home. So give people a call and just sort of touch base with what's going on at home, or flick off an email or something like that. And then depending on what was, if people were doing a fam trip or something like that, potentially jump on that instead. Maybe head out to the ski field, and there's just endless things to do, as we've touched on before. So
awesome. Yeah, so I mean the general routine sounds pretty similar. I think it's quite consistent with what most people experience down there. So you work your 6 days a week, you have your Sunday off to chill and relax. Well, in some cases it's not a Sunday, but you have your day off to chill and relax. But yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah, and I mean the meal times are all the exact same, as far as, this is when the cooks put the food out, and so that's kind of sets your routine around that, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to talk through, the electrician's got quite an important job when it comes to trace heating and things like that? Do you want to talk about
what trace heating is and how it's useful? So trace heating is a heating element that you'd normally wrap around a pipe, and so we lag pipes, so we insulate them, but we'll also put some heat trace down them. So that's an electrical cable essentially that acts as a resistor, and it heats things to make sure that things don't freeze. So very important for our water pipes in particular, but anything that we don't want to freeze. So we've got heat trace going all over the station and the floor, and also out to those outbuildings. So wherever we've got like our water tanks that are outside the station, there'll be heat trace pipes up to them, and down to where our water intake is, as Tom sort of spoke to the other day. We've got heat trace piping all the way down there to make sure that any of that pipe work doesn't freeze. So it's we also have jacketed pipes as well, so hot water that goes around the pipes as well, to make sure that we're doubly sure that we're not going to have any frozen pipes, because when a pipe freezes, it'll often burst at some point because the expansion of the water. So we want to stop that from happening wherever possible. And that also fuel lines is the other one that sometimes we have heat trace down fuel lines to make sure that they keep a bit warm as well. So
cool.
There is a bit of an interaction as well for us between Scott Base and McMurdo because of that microgrid. So we end up having we'll often go over and sort of see their power plant and make sure that we kind of understand the whole system as it stands. But there'll be often times that we'll be interacting with the McMurdo lines crew and things like that. So if we want to take the grid to be standalone, so McMurdo and Scott Base are standalone, we'll often be the ones that are kind of making sure that that's happening, and then going through and actually decoupling the stations from each other essentially. So there's that part to play, and like conversely, if we want to restore the grid and put the two stations back together, we obviously play an instrumental role in making sure that all goes smoothly. As far as daily rounds concerned, or weekly rounds, so every week we'll go through and make sure that all our voltages are correct, and make sure that all our connection to the grid, all our frequency in and out, how much power have we imported, how much power have we exported, what our readings out of our diesel tanks have been, as far as how much our generators have used. So there's a great deal of reporting that goes on a weekly basis to paint that bigger picture, which is really good, as far as that helps build you a better understanding of what normal looks like and what we would expect to see. So all of a sudden we see a massive spike in diesel use, say, around a diesel generator, then we know, okay, well, actually what's going on with that particular piece of plant. So it's quite important as part of your routine maintenance to be doing that, what's going on, the observations, the making sure that you're walking past the plant and understanding it, so that you've got a real good in-depth knowledge of what it good looks like. Yeah.
You touched on frequency converting back then, and I think some people might have the question, you've got New Zealand and then you've got US, which operate on different voltages and frequencies. So how does that work? Can you explain how the whole grid connection works when you've got two different frequencies and voltages?
Yep. So at Scott Base we've got a frequency converter, and so that converts on, and we can import and we can export as well. So it's a two-way thing, so we can do either. And so Scott Base being New Zealand, we end up having 50 hertz, and the two stations were originally never tied together as a microgrid. And so when they tied the two together, one of the big fundamental challenges that they had to overcome was this thing of different voltages, different frequencies. So American voltage, usually 110 out the wall outlet, and that's at 60 hertz. And whereas Scott Base is 230 volts out the wall socket, and that is at 50 hertz. We have step-up transformers, so our microgrid operates at a voltage of 4,160 volts, and that gets converted at both ends, so that will then end up getting stepped down. So everything from Scott Base is stepped up to that voltage and then out onto the grid, and so the power comes in and out of Scott Base, and then that's where the frequency conversion happens. So everything else is at 60 hertz. So that means that we have a reliable grid between the two stations operating at that higher voltage, and then it steps it down. And the reason you do that is for current and the cable sizes. So, I won't bore you with the technical. One other thing with the microgrid, so at Scott Base we end up having 3 diesel generators. They're about 160, 180 kilowatt machines. McMurdo have 5 1.2, 1.4 megawatt machines, so quite a bit bigger. And then we have 3 wind turbines currently, which are about to be replaced. And the 3 wind turbines are at 300 kilowatts each. So we have about a megawatt of wind, and then McMurdo have about 5 1.2, 1.4 megawatt machines, and then Scott Base have got 3 little 180, 160 kilowatt machines. And so the ideal situation is if we're running one McMurdo machine, the wind farm's going flat out, and we've got 1 or 2 of our Scott Base machines, and that gives us enough spinning reserve so that we've got capacity in there. So should something trip, hopefully the whole thing won't sort of tip over and give us a brownout. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing a day in your life, Jonny, as the electrician at Scott Base. It's nice and interesting to hear how people's days differ down there, and particularly for those who are interested in applying for that electrician role or at Scott Base or anywhere. Hopefully this has given you a bit of an understanding of what the electrician gets up to. So thanks very much. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Everything Antarctica podcast. We hope you've learned a little bit more about the day in the life of an electrician at Scott Base. Tune in next week for another episode. Cheers. That's it for today's episode of the Everything Antarctica podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about us as hosts, you can find us on Instagram at Matty K. Jordan and at Jonny Harrison NZ. We're also on socials. You can find us at Everything Antarctica. This episode will be released on all streaming platforms, and the long-form video will be found on YouTube. Check us out wherever you listen to your podcasts.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. This will really help us in our mission to make this podcast as good as it possibly can be. Please share this episode with your friends and social networks so we can spread the word to more people.
Until next time, stay cool.